Guys, welcome back. Welcome back. First, happy New Year's Eve. We are closing out 2022. What a year we've had, not just in the markets, but in our personal lives with everything that seems to still be carrying over from 2020 with the entire sea stuff that we are very familiar with. But what we want to do is take a step back and reflect and review on what the markets have really shown us for the outlay of this year and what we can expect going into 2023. So, you guys, how we always start our analysis is by first looking at Bitcoin dominance, which for my new visitors and subscribers, this is the weighted market cap of Bitcoin against the entire market. And as you see here, is actually weighted by percentages. And what that basically demonstrates is how much of an influence Bitcoin has over the entire market itself. So as you see here, when we first started to do these videos a few months ago, we had made this large, a large dip into a support zone. And since then, we've rallied and back tested multiple times. And currently right now, we are back testing an area of support that we currently have. We do have overhead resistance here at about the 42.7% level. However, this is very important given that the yearly quote unquote close, daily close is not quite complete, given that crypto is open 24 hours a day. The markets are always trading. So it's very interesting to see that we are painting a bearish candle here to close out the day, year, and month. And we're starting to see the inverse happen where alts are actually starting to pull in some relief. And we'll take a look at those. But what this is telling me is we are basically retesting areas of resistance that is now resistance that functioned as support in the past. So if you see this green line right here, which demonstrated to us this was a major level of resistance, and it took quite a bit of attempts before we got above it. And now that we're above it, we're basically back testing. I would like to see here in the future the 42.7% retracement fulfilled, but we know that that's not going to be something that happens where the market goes straight up and straight down. So that is some context that we want to look at. This is the daily chart. And when we take a further step back and we look at it from a monthly point of view, we still closed very much so in a bullish fashion here, right here, where we made that last retest in this area of support. What could we possibly paint here going into the following month, which is depending on what kind of news we will get, first week of January, considering what happens with NFP as far as jobs reports and FOMC. So we want to pay attention to what kind of painting of a candle that we'll get, given this is a monthly candle, so a lot of things can happen. But we know that we always want to start from the top and go down. But given, once again, that, we've been bullish with Bitcoin dominance thus far, and if we were to be even more precise here, we always like to pull out our Fibonacci tool, and we pull down here and take a look to see. Let's see right here. Sometimes these tools are really, really fun here. Okay, let's see here. Let's make sure we have this properly. Okay, perfect. So now, not taking away from everything else that's already here, and I don't want to confuse you guys. So you notice the area of resistance that I talked about, it completely coincides with the 38.2% fib level, which is something that I'm expecting if we hold this area of support here currently, and we make one more run up before we do so. And we want to see what happens from there. If we see that happen, then I expect altcoins to complete their relief rally and start heading back lower. So just kind of pay attention to that, guys. We want to see if we're going to get, something like this to happen. And if so, what that can initially tell us is even if the market itself is not going up, it could mean that Bitcoin is not declining as quickly as we would see in alts. But we just want to pay attention to what happens here in this coming week. That is Bitcoin dominance. And now Bitcoin itself, we had something here kind of like what we had previously, which is we had a break of this ascending wedge pattern, but we broke and not have fallen lower thus far. We're just kind of trading sideways still. We saw this happen here where we broke down, but we really could not fall lower. So we made one more push higher before we continued. And so now we know the trend is still bearish, given that we haven't had a lot of volatility in the last few days because it is the end of the year. So we're expecting things to kind of pick back up when the rest of the world is off of vacation and want to partake in the crypto markets itself. So now what we're seeing here, and it kind of coincides with what we saw with the Bitcoin dominance chart, which is Bitcoin itself is just kind of trading sideways. Even though Bitcoin dominance is going lower, we know that when that happens, then we can see some consolidation or sideways trading with Bitcoin, and we happen to see the alts kind of take off. So we're going to keep an eye on that. We still have our downside target between the 12,000 and 13,500 level. That's something that we want to see achieved before we can kind of get a solidification of if this is actually going to be our bottom. So just keep an eye on that when we get a candle that's painted where it's giving us the signal that we're going to start to have our leg lower, which we're anticipating for. Just pay attention to that. But once again, it's New Year's Eve, so we're not expecting a whole lot of volatility with Bitcoin currently right now. But we know that this is a target that we've had for weeks now, much like most of these ascending wedge patterns that we've had. We had targets on those expecting downside targets to be hit. So that is Bitcoin. And now, much of what I just mentioned about Ethereum and the altcoins, we saw Bitcoin dominance going lower. So incidentally, or not coincidentally, that it means that we were going to get maybe some bullish price action. And don't take that term, and run with it. What I mean by bullish price action, meaning we're just giving a little bit of relief for the time being. And you can see that here. We're now here on a 4-hour chart. We just left the daily chart. And as you see here, we're currently just kind of holding. We're trading sideways. We know that upper head resistance is about 1220. Are we expecting that to hit again? We will only see. It depends. If Bitcoin dominance continues to go lower, we might come tag it again and head lower. And from there, we get those downside targets that we've been expecting, which, let's see here, we jump back to the daily chart. We know that we are expecting $1,000 Ethereum, very much so, something that we've been waiting for a long time. And as we talk about all the time, when we are in these tight patterns and there's not a lot of movement, and this is why it's important when you look at higher time frames, because when you look at lower time frames, then there's a lot of noise and you can be confused about the overall direction of the market. So always zoom out, start with the higher time frames so you have more data to be able to give you a bias for what you're looking for. But this is where we're at. This is what we've been doing now here, really since the beginning of November, just trading sideways. And like I said, we're only getting a little bit of relief, give or take, because Bitcoin dominance is going down. We're still expecting the $1,000 target for Ethereum to be met. And it's only a matter of time in which it decides to do so, given after the holiday passes on tomorrow and what we can expect for an upcoming trading week. So that is Ethereum. Currently, some of the alts are kind of moved around. And because I have such a large community with Solana, and I very much appreciate you guys who continue to encourage me to do these videos, let's take a look at what's going on here. We know that we had this particular retracement that we were looking at. Let's see here, we're going to remove this one. Okay, let's remove this one. So if you guys remember from the last video, we were anticipating another leg lower with Solana. And we got it. Just about spot on. And what happened? We had a capitulation wick that did not close favorable, in a sense where, it didn't give us a continuation lower. Instead, we bounced from this major area and we're currently pulling back higher. On that same day, we did come back and retest the area which we fell through, which was support and is now resistance. And we're just slowly trying to climb our way back up here. Given, like I said, Bitcoin dominance is going down, Ethereum is giving a little bit of relief, that I don't expect this to be something that will completely turn the market around, given that this pattern here was very, very weak. So we're keeping this in mind, and we're looking to see what happens around $11 price. And if we do happen to surpass that, then I'm not expecting much more than $12 before we head lower to our major area that we've been anticipating for, which is about $5. And I know that sounds scary given that the asset was, once upon a time, $250, but we have to remember that when the bull run started with Solana, it was about $1. So for it to come back down to $5 is something that is not in a position where it seems crazy. For most of us that have been around in the crypto space for a handful of years, we know that when we have corrections in the crypto market, one, they're usually very volatile. We see average 90% down for alts. And then the ones that maintain their status, then they recover and they go to print new all-time highs in the following bull run. So always keep that in mind, guys. But also, once again, like I've been saying for a while, do not make sure you're not buying a falling knife. I know that we want to see the market go up, but we also have to be cognizant of the cycles that happen with crypto. We'll talk about that towards the end of the video. But that's Solana, a little bit of relief, giving the big drop that we had, and maybe some sideways consolidation before we come and revisit this $5 zone, which I'm very much anticipating for. And that is Solana. And so now we're doing something a little interesting here today, because there's much of discussion with what crypto is going to be classified as. Some say securities, some say commodities, but all in all, it's a risk-on asset, much like the stock market and much like gold and silver. So we want to keep this in our analysis, because we know that usually when there is times of uncertainty, as well as in times of inflation, we tend to see gold perform very well. And as you see here, gold had revisited these lows here all the way from April of 2020, and we bounced from them. And what's been going on now is we've basically been climbing higher. And it makes sense because we've seen the decline in the dollar. And so now we've held currently that 1789 level, and we're in a way just kind of in another ascending pattern, meaning we might, okay, here, that's the wrong one. Let me remove that, guys. Okay, so now we're just kind of pulling up, and we notice that the next target is about 1872, and we may or may not make it there. There is a lot of orders here in this area, and as you noticed in the past, anytime we came close to that area, we've had a hard time continuing higher. But if we're in alignment with our Fibonacci levels, then it's possible that we might see this. But we just pay attention to this. This will happen depending on what the dollar does. And typically when we see the gold and silver assets perform, it's typically because the dollar is bearish. So keep those things in mind when we pay attention to market structure for going into the new year, because as of right now, until we can really get above this area, I wouldn't say the trend has necessarily changed. I would expect another back test possibly before going higher, but just kind of keep that in mind. I love gold and silver as tangible assets that have, pretty much preserved our purchasing power. And, they have their use for what they are to do when it comes to our monetary system. So keep that in mind for gold. I'm expecting price to continue to kind of creep a little bit in this channel that we have. And, what happens when we get to that 1872 level, or if we quite get there. And now, lastly, the DXY or the dollar. So we know that we were on a tear with this really all last year. And we had hit a top, interesting enough, in September. The reason why I say interesting enough in September is typically in September, it's usually bearish for the stock market indexes and risk on assets. However, we got quite the opposite happen here in this year with the asset classes. And essentially what we have been doing now is we've made this massive top and we've been pulling back. And currently right now where we close is about 103.4. And, there's not much of support below that. And given the areas in which we've closed before, it can get quite interesting for where we need to revisit next. There's, some areas of support between where we are now and towards the bottom of this trend around 101. Now, when we take a step back and understand the economic environment that we've been in, we've had a lot of volatility this past year, as well as in the year before that. We've seen the dollar go erratically crazy, bullish, but we saw other currencies not perform well against it. Vice versa, we happen to see everything else as far as risk on assets not do well in correspondence to that. And although we've been quite bearish on the dollar here now for the last couple months, we have not seen that transition as far as volatility and or correction with Bitcoin. We basically have been continuing to slide lower, even though we're expecting it, but we haven't got much of any relief in comparison to other risk on assets. So that really helps to kind of give you a picture with what's going on with the markets right now and what is it that we are really anticipating. The dollar has been bearish for the last couple of months. The stock market has been climbing higher, but making big retracements. And crypto itself has not done much, and a lot of it because of fundamental news. And so what we are looking at going into the new year is, what kind of economic environment are we going to continue in, and what could possibly change? Is the rate hikes going to stop? Are they going to slow down? Is inflation going to slow down? These are things you want to ask yourself, and you can do that by, just paying attention to what's going on with your local economies and, how to protect yourself during this time when the things that we invest in that we look to earn a return are not giving us those returns. And the dollar that you might invest in to protect against it is now bearish. You have to be very strategic about what you plan to do in the future. So by all means, this is not FUD, it's proper planning. Make sure you put yourself in position that when the markets do bottom out, you're prepared to get in and you have a plan that you can execute. So guys, that is it for our wrap up. Thank you for all of the support this year. Please like, share, and comment, and let me know what you would like for me to cover in our next video. I will see you guys in the new year. Have a wonderful day.